This is a very fantastical comment. I had to blur the person's name out because I thought this is very interesting. As we're talking about the pricing of video games in the market, the way things are currently, there's just a huge saturation of games. In fact, an economic principle will be called excess supply. The market is at a disequilibrium at the end of the day. This user said that this, talking about the pricing of the game, is the stupidest problem that they have heard yet. Then they gave us a directive. They said, don't buy it if you don't think it's worth $80. Now, here's the thing. It's not that I don't think Nintendo's games aren't worth $80. It's that I know that they're not worth $80. How do I know that they're not worth $80? Because on the market currently, there is a plethora of video games that are much better than Nintendo games that are worth less. You see what I did there? The whole thing about it and its worth is a subjective thing, right? So if I think that a Nintendo game is not worth $80 and you think it is worth $80, that's subjective, but that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the standard pricing of games, basically, in a sense, being assaulted by these crap pricing for games that don't cost that much to make compared to other games that are priced less, and Nintendo wanting a premium for it, and then probably kicking off another thing in terms of pricing when the gaming industry right now already has too many other games that are alternatives out there that are sold for much less. That's what we're talking about. We're looking at excess supply, we're looking at demand, and we're looking at how Nintendo is basically offbeat when it comes down to it. So again, maybe you might like Nintendo. Maybe you might think, according to you, you said also if you break it down, the hours spent versus the price tag, it works out to pennies for every hour you play, unlike a movie. The problem is there are already too many games to play. These games are now not only asking for your money, they're also requiring your time to play. So how much are you going to give these companies in dollars to then go back and give them more money in your time? And this is why the backlog is the biggest final boss ever. Games sitting everywhere that many of us have not yet gone around to, and Nintendo bringing its cheap games and asking people to pay a premium for it, and people are looking and saying, why? That's where you have the conversation. Now, some people are going to hop over their backlogs and all of those problems and jump in and go buy the games. No one is saying they're not, but we're just saying the reason you're hearing people ask Nintendo, what's so special about your game, is because there are many other games out here. So this value that you're talking about, right? You've basically argued against Nintendo because if you spend $80 for a game and you play the game for maybe 10 hours, you get a factor of about, what, $8 an hour spent. If somebody buys another game for $25 and plays that, game for 10 hours, they get a value of about $2 an hour. So what you're saying, if you look at it, is that that game that is $25 is basically inherently worth more than the Nintendo $80 game, thereby even making my point on top of it. Do you see what's happening here? You wanted to argue to say, well, people are complaining unnecessarily, but you've just gone ahead to argue for my case. I have recruited you. You said it's the cheapest form of entertainment around, yet people don't want it to go up in price. It's not that people don't want it to go up in price. It's going up in price either way. The funny thing is, as it's going up in price, this Nintendo games and maybe other games, other titles are coming down in price. Hence, the reason why I can open any store right now and you'll see games going down in price. Right? So what's funny is everyone is looking at Nintendo saying, in a world where games are going down with price, what makes your game so special that it should go up in price? You said games were proportionally more expensive in the 80s and the 90s. In the 80s and the 90s, there was not this. Does that make sense? In the 80s and the 90s, there were not 4,000 games already launched on Steam. Let's go ahead and show you what's going on. Game releases by year summary on Steam. There's already 5,000. I'm sorry, it was about 4,000 the other day. Do y'all see how fast that thing climbed? In the 80s and the 90s, they weren't making this. In fact, there are more games that have probably launched since the first Nintendo Switch came out than we could probably count in the 80s and 90s. I think. Probably. I said probably. I don't know. But the frequency of game releases are insane. So you said maybe have one less latte. I don't drink lattes. Buy one fewer pair of Guess jeans. I don't buy Guess jeans. And you have the extra $20 for the game, or don't buy it. This is basically the Doug Bowser in the, representation of an audience member with a comment. The question is not that people don't have the money to buy. You have to understand that a lot of people that bought the Nintendo Switch and a lot of people that who are probably looking at a Switch 2 are people who actually can afford it. A lot of people that are actually talking about the prices are people who can actually afford it 10 times over, probably even more than you. But many of them are conscientious as to the can of worms that's going to open up if gamers don't get conscientious enough to realize that that game ain't worth, in this current market with oversupply everywhere, it is not worth $70 even. This is just the truth. Anybody who wants to argue that point, let's jump into the math by every metric. Let's assess other video games on the market by every metric, genre, platform, and so on and so forth, and look at their pricing, and you would juxtapose it against these Nintendo games, and you will see that this company is putting wool over your eyes, and their own cronies are pretty much down-talking you if you even make any complaint and tell you that you should probably just not buy it so that they can go ahead and be, in a sense, doing what they're doing without actually listening to any resistance to a multi-billion-dollar corporation that wants to milk you. They don't respect you, okay? They do not respect you at all. That's why they want to bring you Mario and a hoppity Mario Kart for $90 on the physical. Whereas there are other racing games out there, different genres, different styles, and whatever it is. They have no respect for you. And you're basically encouraging them to keep losing respect for you and your wallet. Buy, by all means. It's designed for you anyways. Enjoy. Look at this. This is the strangest thing I've ever seen in a long time. The economic reality is what people are pointing towards. This doesn't mean they're not going to be suckers out there. There are going to be people who Nintendo is going to basically enjoy their money. I mean, we're not saying that. We're just saying that, before they actually go ahead and do that and people start saying that this is worth it, from a mathematical perspective, that ain't it at all. Anyways, that's my little spill on the matter. Thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate you guys' time and audience. I did not know Nintendo had like some real staunch defenders like this. They would defend anything. Whew. Peace out.